What if everything you've been told about genius is wrong? What if the smartest people aren't always the loudest, the fastest, or the ones collecting perfect grades? Psychology has uncovered something surprising. Many of history's greatest innovators looked completely ordinary until the world finally caught up with the way they thought. And if you've ever felt different without knowing why, one of these 8 signs might explain more about your mind than you expect. Most people imagine genius as something obvious: a child who solves impossible math problems, a student who never struggles, someone who always seems one step ahead of everyone else. Movies reinforce this image, schools reward it, society celebrates it. But real psychology paints a very different picture. When researchers studied highly creative scientists, artists, inventors, and entrepreneurs, they noticed an unexpected pattern. Many weren't considered exceptional when they were young. Some were misunderstood. Others were labeled as distracted, difficult, or even lazy. Instead of fitting perfectly into the world around them, they often felt like outsiders trying to understand rules that everyone else seemed to accept without question. Because genuine genius isn't simply about having more information. It's about seeing the world differently. It's about noticing patterns other people overlook, asking questions no one else thinks to ask, connecting ideas that seem completely unrelated. Psychologists have spent decades studying what separates extraordinary minds from merely intelligent ones. And the answers are far more fascinating than high IQ scores or perfect report cards. Today, we're exploring 8 psychological signs that often appear long before the world recognizes someone's potential. Not everyone with these traits becomes famous, but many of the people who changed history shared them. Let's begin with the first sign, and it's probably not what you expect. Sign 1. You notice patterns before you notice facts. ****. Most people collect information. Your brain collects relationships. Imagine walking into a crowded cafe. One person notices the music, another notices the smell of coffee, someone else notices the menu. But your mind quietly starts connecting things. You notice which tables stay occupied the longest. You realize the staff always move in the same direction. You recognize that customers unconsciously choose seats near natural light. Without trying, your brain begins building a hidden map. This ability is called pattern recognition. Psychologists believe it's one of the strongest predictors of creative thinking. Instead of memorizing isolated facts, highly original thinkers naturally organize information into systems. This is why they often predict outcomes before others do. Not because they can see the future, because they notice invisible patterns already unfolding. The famous psychologist Herbert Simon once suggested that expertise isn't simply knowing more, it's recognizing meaningful patterns faster than everyone else. Think about chess grandmasters. They don't memorize every possible move. Their brains instantly recognize familiar structures. Doctors don't diagnose illness by remembering every symptom individually. They recognize patterns built from years of observation. The same happens in everyday life. Maybe you've predicted friendships that wouldn't last. Maybe you've sensed a business idea would succeed long before it became popular. Maybe you've quietly noticed changes in someone's behavior before anyone else realized something was wrong. People often call this intuition. But psychology suggests intuition is frequently pattern recognition happening below conscious awareness. The strange part, this ability can make conversations frustrating. While everyone debates small details, your mind is already focused on the bigger picture. You may even struggle explaining how you reached a conclusion. You just know. And because you can't always explain your thinking step by step, people sometimes assume you're guessing. You're not. Your brain simply reached the destination using roads they couldn't see, but recognizing patterns is only the beginning, because the next sign makes those patterns even more powerful. Sign 2. You constantly connect unrelated ideas. Have you ever been watching a documentary about ancient civilizations and suddenly it gave you an idea for your career? Or read a novel that unexpectedly helped you solve a personal problem? Most people keep knowledge in separate boxes. History belongs here. Science belongs there. Art stays over there. Creative minds don't use boxes. They build bridges. Psychologists call this associative thinking. Instead of asking, what category does this belong to? Your brain asks, what else is this connected to? This is one reason many groundbreaking ideas come from people working outside traditional boundaries. The inventor isn't only studying engineering, they're studying biology, music, philosophy, nature, architecture. At first glance, it looks like they're distracted. In reality, they're collecting puzzle pieces from different worlds. Eventually, those pieces combine into something entirely new. Steve Jobs often talked about how studying calligraphy influenced the design of personal computers. Typography had nothing to do with computer engineering until it changed computers forever. Leonardo da Vinci studied anatomy, painting, engineering, mathematics, water movement, and human emotion. To most people, those interests seemed unrelated. To his mind, they were all part of the same conversation. If you've ever felt guilty because your interests constantly change, don't assume you're unfocused. Some minds explore widely before they create deeply. Research on creativity repeatedly shows that original thinkers often possess unusually broad curiosity. They're not trying to master one subject, they're trying to understand reality itself. And that's why they often surprise everyone with ideas nobody expected. Here's a question. How often do people tell you those two things have nothing to do with each other? If you hear that often, there's a chance your brain naturally builds connections others simply don't see yet. But this gift comes with a cost, because people rarely understand questions that seem unrelated, which leads to the third sign. Sign 3. You become obsessed with questions nobody else cares about. Asterisk. Most education teaches us how to answer questions. Very few people learn how to ask better ones. That's the difference. Average thinking looks for answers. Exceptional thinking questions the question itself. Imagine someone asking, how do we make horses run faster? Most people would suggest better training, better food, better equipment. But someone else asks, what if we stopped using horses altogether? That single question changes history. Psychologists who study innovation often distinguish between problem solving and problem finding Problem solvers improve existing systems. Problem finders discover entirely new ones. Albert Einstein became famous because he asked questions that sounded almost childish. What would happen if you could ride alongside a beam of light? Nobody considered it practical. Yet that simple curiosity eventually reshaped modern physics. Original minds often spend far longer living with questions than searching for immediate answers. That's uncomfortable, especially in a world obsessed with certainty. You might find yourself wondering things that seem strange to everyone else. Why do humans trust confidence more than accuracy? Why do people repeat harmful habits even when they know better? Why does loneliness feel physical? Why do some memories never disappear? You don't ask because you expect easy answers. You ask because your curiosity refuses to stay quiet. And here's something fascinating. Studies consistently show that highly creative individuals tolerate uncertainty better than most people. Instead of rushing toward conclusions, they stay curious, long enough for deeper insights to appear. That's difficult, because society rewards people who sound certain, not people who keep asking. But history repeatedly shows that revolutionary discoveries begin with unusual questions, not obvious answers. So if you've ever felt embarrassed because your mind keeps chasing ideas other people dismiss, don't silence it too quickly. Sometimes the question everyone ignores becomes the answer everyone eventually needs. Before we continue, take a second to think about your own life. Have you ever looked at someone else's routine and wondered, why can't I work like that? Maybe you've blamed yourself for being inconsistent. Maybe you've believed you lacked discipline. But what if the problem wasn't your motivation? What if your brain simply works differently? Let's continue. Sign 4. Your best work happens in intense bursts, not steady routines. Modern culture worships consistency. Wake up at 5, work 8 hours, repeat every day. We're told that success belongs to the people who never slow down, but psychology tells a more complicated story. Researchers studying highly creative individuals discovered that many of them don't produce their best work through constant effort. Instead, they experience cycles, long periods that appear almost unproductive, followed by explosive moments where weeks or even months of work seem to pour out in days. At first glance, this looks like procrastination. From the inside, it feels confusing. You might spend days doing very little, ideas seem blurry, nothing feels right. Then suddenly, everything clicks. Words flow effortlessly. Solutions appear from nowhere. Projects that seemed impossible suddenly become obvious. Psychologists call part of this process incubation. While your conscious mind appears to be resting, your unconscious mind continues working. Hidden connections are forming. Memories are reorganizing. Ideas are quietly combining beneath your awareness. This is why some of history's greatest breakthroughs happen during ordinary moments. A scientist taking a walk, a writer staring out a window, an inventor lying awake at night. The discovery didn't appear because they suddenly became smarter. It appeared because their brain had been solving the problem in silence. Think of planting a seed. For weeks, nothing seems to happen. If you judged only what you could see above the ground, you'd assume nothing was growing. But underground, roots are spreading. Eventually, the plant breaks through the surface. The visible growth happens quickly. The invisible growth took much longer. Creative thinking works the same way. The danger is that society only celebrates the visible part. No one applauds the silent weeks, the uncertain days, the moments where it feels like nothing is happening. So people begin forcing productivity. They panic. They compare themselves to others, and in doing so, they interrupt the very process that creates original work. This doesn't mean discipline isn't important. It absolutely is. But discipline isn't always about producing something every single day. Sometimes it's about trusting the process long enough for your mind to finish building what it started. If your life has always moved in waves instead of straight lines, that isn't necessarily a weakness. It may simply be how your creativity breathes. Sign 5. People often thought you were too much growing up. ****. Think back to your childhood. Not your grades, not your achievements. Think about the words adults used to describe you. Were you called too sensitive, too emotional, too curious, too quiet, too intense? Maybe teachers thought you asked too many questions. Maybe your parents couldn't understand why small things affected you so deeply. Maybe classmates thought you overreacted, overthought, overanalyzed. Eventually, you learned something dangerous. You learned that being fully yourself made other people uncomfortable. So you adapted. You became quieter. You stopped asking certain questions. You hid your excitement. You laughed less loudly, dreamed less openly. Little by little, you made yourself smaller. Psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski spent years studying highly gifted individuals and discovered something remarkable. Many possessed what he called overexcitabilities, heightened ways of experiencing the world. Some experienced emotions more intensely. Others possessed endless curiosity. Some had incredibly vivid imaginations. Others noticed tiny details everyone else ignored. These weren't flaws. They were amplified ways of processing reality. Imagine living with your senses turned slightly higher than everyone else's. A beautiful song moves you to tears. A meaningful conversation stays with you for years. An unanswered question refuses to leave your mind. That level of intensity can feel exhausting, but it also fuels extraordinary creativity. Because originality often begins with noticing what everyone else overlooks. Many artists, scientists, inventors, authors shared this same sensitivity. The very quality that made them feel different eventually became the source of their greatest work. So if you've spent years apologizing for caring too deeply, feeling too much, wondering too much, maybe you've misunderstood your greatest strength. Sensitivity isn't always fragility. Sometimes it's heightened perception. Sign 6. You naturally think in systems instead of simple answers. Imagine someone tells you, the company is losing money. Most people immediately search for one cause: bad management, weak marketing, poor employees. Simple explanation. Problem solved. But your brain doesn't stop there. Instead, it begins pulling invisible threads. How did leadership decisions influence employee morale? How did employee morale affect customer experience? How did customer experience change sales? How did market conditions amplify every other problem? You don't just see events, you see networks. This is called systems thinking. It's one of the most valuable cognitive skills psychologists associate with complex problem solving. Systems thinkers rarely believe problems have one cause, because reality almost never does. Everything influences everything else. Relationships shape behavior. Behavior shapes culture. Culture shapes decisions. Decisions create outcomes. That's why simple answers often feel incomplete to you. When people say, everything would be fixed if we just changed one thing, your mind quietly says, it's never that simple. This ability helps explain why some people consistently predict long-term consequences, while others focus only on immediate results. They aren't necessarily smarter, they're looking at a larger map. But there's a downside. Systems thinkers often struggle in conversations. Why? Because your explanations sound complicated. You see 10 moving parts. Other people only see one. By the time you've explained the entire chain, they've already moved on. Sometimes you stay silent because explaining everything feels impossible. You know the answer. You just can't reduce it into one sentence without leaving out what actually matters. Ironically, people may mistake this complexity for uncertainty, when in reality, you're simply seeing more variables than everyone else. History is filled with people who transformed entire industries because they understood systems instead of isolated events. They didn't fix symptoms, they redesigned the structure creating the symptoms. And that's exactly how truly original minds create lasting change. We've reached the final two signs, and these may be the most important of all, because they aren't about intelligence, they're about purpose. If the earlier signs describe how your mind works, these last two reveal why it never seems completely satisfied. Sign 7. You feel most alive when you're creating something that didn't exist before. Have you ever noticed something strange? You can finally get a break from work, your schedule is clear, you have time to relax, but instead of feeling happy, you feel restless. Not because something is wrong, but because you're not building anything. For many people, happiness comes from comfort. For highly creative minds, happiness often comes from creation. Psychologists have long studied what motivates exceptional performers, and one idea appears again and again. It's called intrinsic motivation. This means you don't create because someone tells you to. You don't create only for money, or praise, or recognition. You create because something inside you refuses to stay still. Think about writers. Many continue writing long after becoming wealthy. Musicians still compose songs after selling millions of records. Scientists keep researching even after winning the highest awards. Why? Because creating isn't just something they do. It's part of who they are. Psychologist Abraham Maslow, famous for his theory of self-actualization, noticed that many highly fulfilled people shared one unusual habit. They never truly stopped creating, even after achieving success, because their goal wasn't simply achievement, it was expression, bringing something into the world that only they could create. And this doesn't only apply to artists. Maybe you're designing businesses, teaching people, building software, solving engineering problems, starting charities, inventing products, raising children with intention. Creation wears many different faces, but the feeling remains the same. When you're creating, you feel energized, time disappears, hours pass like minutes. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, described this state as flow, that rare moment when challenge and ability become perfectly balanced. You're no longer forcing your mind to work, your mind begins pulling you forward. It's one of the happiest psychological states humans can experience. The opposite is equally revealing. When creative people ignore this need for too long, they often don't feel relaxed. They feel empty. Life becomes repetitive. Even success starts feeling meaningless. Not because they want more possessions, because they need more purpose. So if you've ever wondered why simply settling down never feels enough, maybe your brain isn't chasing comfort. Maybe it's chasing creation. Sign 8. You carry the quiet feeling that you're meant to do something bigger. Now we arrive at the final sign. The one most people never admit out loud, because they're afraid it sounds arrogant. But listen carefully. Deep inside, do you ever feel like your life hasn't really started yet? Not literally. You have responsibilities. You go to work. You pay bills. You live your life. But underneath all of that, there's a quiet feeling, a whisper that says, this isn't everything I'm capable of. It's difficult to explain. You don't necessarily know exactly what you're meant to create. You just know there's something unfinished, something waiting. Psychology has an interesting explanation for this feeling. Human beings don't only seek survival, we seek meaning. Research by psychologist Viktor Frankl showed that people can endure enormous hardship when they believe their lives serve a purpose greater than themselves. Without meaning, even comfort feels empty. With meaning, people willingly face incredible challenges. Now here's the important part. Many highly capable people mistake this inner tension for failure. They compare themselves to others. They wonder why they haven't achieved more. They feel guilty for dreaming bigger. But what if that quiet dissatisfaction isn't evidence that you failed? What if it's evidence that your potential hasn't fully been expressed? Think about an acorn. It isn't frustrated because it's broken. It's restless because it was designed to become something much larger. Potential naturally creates tension, not because something is wrong, but because something is unfinished. That doesn't mean everyone is destined to become world famous. Originality isn't measured by fame. Some people change millions of lives, others change one family forever, one student, one company, one invention, one book, one idea. Impact isn't always loud, but it always begins with someone deciding to stop ignoring what they already know inside. Maybe that's where you are today, standing between the life you've built and the life your mind keeps quietly imagining. The bridge between those two worlds isn't talent, it isn't luck, it's action. Small, consistent, intentional action. Because potential means nothing if it never becomes reality. Asterisk, asterisk, final thoughts, asterisk, asterisk. Here's what makes these 8 signs so fascinating. Almost every one of them can be misunderstood. Seeing hidden patterns looks like overthinking. Connecting unrelated ideas looks like being distracted. Asking unusual questions looks like being difficult. Working in bursts looks like laziness. Feeling deeply looks like being too sensitive. Thinking in systems looks like overcomplicating everything. Needing to create looks like never being satisfied. And carrying the feeling that you're capable of more looks like self-doubt. But psychology tells us something very different. Many extraordinary minds spend years believing they're flawed, simply because they don't resemble society's image of intelligence. The truth is, genius rarely announces itself. It doesn't always earn perfect grades. It doesn't always speak the loudest. It doesn't always fit neatly into classrooms, offices, or expectations. Sometimes, it looks like curiosity no one understands. Sometimes, it looks like persistence that refuses to disappear. Sometimes, it looks like a person quietly building ideas while everyone else is chasing approval. And maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Stop asking whether you look like a genius. Start asking whether you're becoming the person your mind was designed to be. Because history isn't changed by people who fit in. It's changed by people who stayed curious long enough to become impossible to ignore. If one of these signs felt deeply familiar, let us know in the comments which one described you best. And if this video changed the way you think about intelligence, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's always believed they were different. Lol, you never know. This might be the first time they realize being different was never their weakness. It was their greatest advantage. Asterisk, asterisk. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Asterisk, asterisk.